Hey folks, how you doing? It's 10/27, 2014, 5:07 p.m. here on a Monday early evening. I thought I would go ahead and just do this regardless of who watches any of this stuff. So I'm kind of doing this for me and any of those out there within the low 2% of the subscribers to this channel. So this is a record of the things that I know. The Akashic record. Should we be interested in it? What's the point? Should you not just rather be interested in your own soul's journey and have access to your own information? Because in truth, that's really all that matters. Really, that's it. I mean, you can glean from other things, but how can you validate whether or not those things are relevant to you? Well, they sound true. Well, they sound true. Echoes can be created within a certain acoustic environment, although what you hear in one place doesn't necessarily mean that's what was originating that created the sound. In other words, is it the same sound? Is it the same word? Is it the same meaning? Same thing when it comes to anything in regards to those out there communicating ideas on a broad scale in relationship to the history, specifically the history in regards to this construct and the experience of those as co-creators. Now, that makes for good stories, and it can be very interesting to the ear, entertaining in fact. But how relevant is it? Can you access the Akashic records? Well, you can access your own. Basically, all that is memories in relationship to your soul's journey. That's what's important. And they're memories that don't come with words and they don't come with images. They come with feelings. And I don't care what anybody says out there, because I do not believe or trust anything out there. I don't. I use only things that are said out there as a means by which to reflect on the things that I already know, that I have learned within a personal condition, separate from everybody else. And so should you, because we all have access to the same thing, and that is our true identity as an immortal spiritual being and our soul's journey within the incarnations or personifications or soul's journey within this creation. To reintegrate with that truth and that reality and stand in that conviction of your identity as an immortal spiritual being, not being duped by any other entity. So, is the Akashic record important? It's being kept here on Earth. That's right. The Akashic record is being kept here on Earth, folks. Are you familiar with the Kashi breakfast cereal company? Well, that was a mouthful. The Kashi breakfast cereal company has a very specific location within their main facility that holds the records of the universe. That's right. That's wrong. That's a joke. Come on, lighten up. Crying out loud. What's wrong with you people? You're too serious about everything. Anyhow, so we got a couple people out there that are kind of noticeable. Andrew Bartzis and Chris Thomas. Andrew Bartzis claims to be the galactic historian. That's pretty lofty, isn't it? And Chris Thomas claims to be hardwired into the Akashic. That's his claim. They both have different stories. They both have different versions in relationship to their access to the so-called records. Now, what are the records? Well, the immortal spiritual beings that make up the collective of the co-creators within this particular construct or universe creation, literally creation. That's the better way to put it, because that's what it is. Because the inward reality is the manifestation of the outward reality. This is a frequency-related construct, therefore it varies in great diversity in regards, or layers of frequencies. those frequencies could be categorized as being densities and dimensions. The dimensions found within densities. And they're constantly fluctuating. Constantly. Like I said, consciousness as a term is constantly in movement. Like the double slit experiment mentioned in the previous video, that when those atoms that are passing through the slits are being observed, they hold form on the other end as they pass through. They're creating a form, a shape. And when they're not being observed, they create a different pattern, which is equivalent to that of light particle waves. In other words, they no longer hold that form. They're dispersed. Like I said, the inward reality is the result of the outward reality. The holographic experiences that we're having, regardless of the density of the frequency in which we are residing in, is occurring because of the immortal spiritual being's focus of intent and agreement. So, how relevant is the Akashic record? Well, as we move through this holographic experience, and the whole purpose of creating, my friends, the whole idea is simply to experience, for the immortal spiritual being to experience itself differently. It's not about evolution, it's not about evolving spiritually. All that is a perception based on a finite perspective. That's the reason for coming into these vessels, is to have a certain micro or perspective. But in order to access the truth of who you are, you go inward to your eternal nature. Easier said than done for some. No, it's really simple. You've lived with it all your life. You've just been programmed to believe certain things, and therefore you ignore it. But when you access yourself, some people call it higher self, I just call it the eternal self. When you do that, then you're aware of actually what is. You're able to observe things accordingly from that perspective. Does that diminish from the personification or the experience within the vessel? No. No, it keeps you grounded, balances you. Otherwise, you get caught up in all kinds of loony-toony activity. It causes you to understand what you need to understand, and that is the identity of who you are and why you're having the experience. The immortal spiritual being becomes the very thing that it believes that it is, that it wants, or believes that it should be. So you're able to act. That's what you're doing. You're actors on the stage. You're acting. So you can do a lot of pretending, and that's what we do a lot. We pretend a lot. We pretend not to be something in order to be something else, in order to fully experience that experience. But at the same time, you still can observe yourself from a different perspective, which is your eternal perspective. Like I said, spirit can be in many places at the same time. It can be within the creation or within the manifestation or embodiment, and outside of it at the same time. So, no, it doesn't complicate the idea of the experience to be aware of your eternal nature in its fullness. In fact, it's the right thing to do, because why consider the idea that you need to limit yourself to a certain way of thinking just because of the experience? That's somebody else's programming. That's not the truth. Yeah, other programming. Which the other programming fits into the category of the reason why you don't have the memories that you need to have. Certain recallability. Myself coming into this vessel at the age of this vessel being 2 years old, I should have had memories intact, right? Nope. And I'm not the only one with stories very similar to that. They come in and they don't have access to those memories. And it seems to me that from the very beginning of experiencing that separation, so to speak, or not having access to certain aspects of my identity was a violation. It felt wrong. It felt really wrong, extremely wrong. And later on, hearing other things, I see that this particular planet seems to be exclusive in most cases in regards to that, as far as memories being removed. And I'm thinking, okay, then some people like Andrew Bartzis says it's a natural process when you go through the womb. Well, I didn't go through the womb. That you have, those memories removed because it's part of the experience. Sorry, Andrew, not buying that load of shit. The reason why is because there's too many other things that line up that have been affecting this this planet and wanting to maintain this planet within a certain frequency state. And I think those beings that have been around for quite a long time that have been doing this and have developed the ability to be able to manipulate the situation like that, have been doing it for quite a long time for the purpose of, like I said, to maintain their sense of comfort with their vibrational state and using this place as a means by which they pull as a resource for themselves in order to maintain their sense of existence, within their experience. There is 3 types of individuals within this construct. There are non-physical, semi-physical, and physical. I like to look at it from this perspective. You have the immortal spiritual being, which is a non-entity, and it's formless. Then you have that which is different aspects within the frequency of this construct, which, like I mentioned, density, and then within those densities you have layers of frequency, which I refer to as being dimensions. That's the way I like to look at it, like a layer cake, So the semi-physical would be within the halfway, obviously, point of that. Not as dense as this physical experience, but still within form and of density. And then you have this real dense, compacted frequency state, which is what we're experiencing right now. So, Andrew Bartzis, what is my take on Andrew? Well, I see him as being very, very well read, extremely well read, and very bright. Now, a lot of the stuff he could pull from, being very well read, and he admits to being very well read. So, I don't subscribe to a lot of what is said because simply I just don't need to. That's just my take on it. I don't need to, because when I leave this vessel, I'm not going to say, oh, Andrew said, or this story, or this information that I learned through my noggin, that, you have that to lean on. You don't have that to lean on. It's totally irrelevant. Your truth has to be relevant to you and you alone, in your soul's journey, in your path, and the compiled aspect of who you are in regards to the subdivision of you within this creation as soul manifestations is what you have access to that affirms your identity within you, that you have to spend the time to meditate on, so that when you do leave this vessel, you leave this vessel with your identity intact and your conviction, so that you're not, you're not tricked. It's really that simple. You got to understand, you're extremely, extremely powerful. That's the reason why everybody's equal, because you all come from the same thing and you have access all to the same thing. To be in your natural state of being. Now, when you leave this vessel, you're not doing that. You're not going back immediately to your natural state of being. But you have access to that all the time. Like I said, spirit subdivides, it can be in many places at the same time. There's no limitation to it. So, when you leave the vessel, you're still holding on to the ego and identity that you had within this vessel. Because truly, this identity is a fading identity. You know, who you are as now, this is a fading identity. It's just the experience of experiencing self. When you go back to your natural state of being, those things fade away completely. And your natural state of being is a formless, non-entity, all-knowing and all-powerful. That's an equality across the board for the immortal spiritual being, for the reason why everything is. So that's what makes us equal. So don't let anybody or anything pull something over on you. And I'm not saying that Andrew Bartzis is doing that. I'm saying just the whole experience within this creation. Because there's plenty of... Andrew's a cool guy, and not saying that. He seems, genuine and all these things. I'm just saying what's important to you is not going outside of yourself and hearing stories about the creation to validate your state of existence and to validate your identity. Only you can validate your identity. And that's what I'm saying. So, Andrew seems to be very, very well read, admits to being very well read. And a lot of these stories and things that he says could relate simply to that which he's learned. So am I saying what he's saying is not true? What I'm saying is it doesn't matter to me. Because what matters to me is what matters to me. And what matters to you on a personal level, I'm saying, like I'm not digressing, staying on the subject here, and that is your own personal awareness of your identity. That's what's important. And if anything out there can hold up a mirror to you in regards to your soul's journey to help you spark a recollection, and that feeling is going to come from within your heart energy, it's not going to come through the mind. It's going to come through the heart energy. And if that happens, then that's cool. And I have had that happen several times to me, but I don't sit there and listen to what they say as much as what it has done for me within that moment. And from that moment on, I stop listening to what's being said. And I go into myself and I connect with that energy. Not theirs, mine. My soul's path energy. Because what it did is it sparked that connection. It sparked an emotional, deep emotional aspect within me that caused me to connect. Now, what I mean by emotional, it's on a certain level, emotions that we experience within this emotional body is not to be equated with the higher sense of those feelings. Because when those in the higher sense or the eternal aspect of our nature, those feelings, if you will, are more even. They're consistent. They're not like within the emotional body where it's like ooh, 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 and this up and down and all goofy sometimes, because it just fluctuates a lot because of this vessel. But I'm talking about an evenness, something that doesn't cause you to react, the type of emotional feeling or deep emotional spiritual feeling that you get that is not reactive. It's not a reactive feeling. Okay? It's just a deep, strong, energetic feeling. Mainly, I call it a feeling or an emotion because of how it affects the body. I guess primarily that's what I'm referring to. Before I get into any of these things in regards to Andrew and what he actually says about the Akashic Record, I'm going to first go over Chris Thomas here in a second. Chris Thomas says that he's been hardwired into the Akashic. And simply put, there's things that Chris says that I do connect with. And one of those areas has to deal with the Anunnaki. I've always had ever since I began to study Hebrew, way back when I ran into that word Anunnaki, something inside of me perked up. It's like, what's this? What's this? I had that energetic flow, like I mentioned. And so I have a connection with the Anunnaki. It's part of my soul's journey, and it's a strong part of it. Anyhow, so Chris Thomas, like I said, there's certain things that I connect with, and that's just me. Like I said, you have to know your own soul's journey. That's what's important. If you run into information, again, the whole idea is for you to do your own scanning of yourself for the relevancy of you wanting to listen to that information. There's a reason why you're listening to that information. Either, I hate to say the word bored, I don't think that really kind of factors into it. If you're bored when you run across something and you lose interest within it real quick or whatever, but if you're drawn to something where you find yourself coming back to a certain thing, there's something for you to gain from that, and that's not to being indoctrinated in regards to the information that's there. The way I simply see it is there is something there that is needed for you to spark your own memories in regards to your soul's journey because of this time frame in which you're in right now. It's important for you to move forward, and there's certain things that are now coming together to allow you to hear what you need to hear for yourself, so that you can take the time and reintegrate with self. Because, like I said, you don't need to sit there and listen to like seminar after seminar, or you just, one word or one sentence, one thing can change what's going on with you, or cause you to take the turn that you need to make in regards to what's happening within your soul's journey, or to realign yourself, because that's really what you're doing. Anyhow, so Chris Thomas, yeah. So there it is, folks. Those are the two guys I'm going to go ahead and be talking about. Hopefully I didn't discourage you about any of this stuff. I just wanted you to know that the whole thing in regards to what you make yourself available to is for the purpose of you sparking your own memories, or reconnecting to those aspects of identity for, I mean, the whole objective here, as I see it, like I mentioned, I know I'm going on and on and on and on, but I see the whole objective here is I see reintegration occurring. Reintegrating, and it's part of the, for a lack of terms, I don't like using these words, but they are words and they take them for what it's worth. The graduating stage. It's, or a transcendence, a moving forward. Because there has been, obviously, a great deal of reincarnation on this planet, and that is not a natural process within, the personification or embodiments within the creation. You don't need to re-experience something. You need to move from stage to stage, and people have bought the delusional fabrication that because we didn't learn something, we need to reincarnate over and over again. That is just a doctrine in order to try to understand the reason for reincarnation. But now we're living in a day and age which it's clear to those that are open to that reality that this has been a manipulation. Reincarnation is not a normal process. It is an abnormal process. And it's been part of the manipulation of other beings in order so that they can maintain their lifestyle and their state of existence within the embodiment that they have chosen. They are stuck. And because of them being stuck, they are manipulating the things around them in order to be able to continue in that state, because they don't know any other way of how to transmute and get out of it. They're stuck. Now, we gave them that power, so that's the way it is. The whole idea here is to gain back your own power. And the more you go outside of yourself, going outside of yourself for reflection is one thing, and that's what I'm saying. But going outside of yourself to the point where you're giving away your power because you're refusing to embrace the things that you need to embrace and take your own personal responsibility for. When you feel something, you need to identify with that, and then you need to connect with that, and then you need to stop listening to what you're listening to in order for you to connect with that, because things can happen very quickly. You don't need to go through a long process in order for things to be understood. The reason why it requires a great deal of time in many respects for processing information is because you're working through mind energy most of the time. And once you transcend the idea of mind energy, and where you can take that mind energy and bring it into heart energy, in other words, drop it down and bring it into submission, then you're not obstructed through mind energy, because mind energy will cause you to second guess things. It will cause you to walk in fear. It will cause you to subtract from your true sense of who you are, in other words, your eternal nature. So thought is only relevant when it's done through heart energy. All right, people. I know that was long-winded. Hopefully I won't be as long-winded next time I deal with this subject. So, peace. Take care. Bye.